Thank you for making time for this. It is an extremely important thing that you are here to support. So my name is Chapman Tabesh, and I am the Vice President of the Alumni Scholars Club, which is the club that's in charge of this event. And I just want to say again, thank you all so much for coming on this occasion, this very special occasion where we are here to honor Professor Will Conley from the Department of Mathematics.
So just to get the my thank yous out of the way so we can get the whole show on the road, I just want to take a moment to thank some very important people, and without them this event would not have been possible. First off, I want to thank the executive board of the Alumni Scholars Club. I know you guys are in the room somewhere, probably over there. And without them, this event would not have been possible. They helped me, supported me, kind of just did whatever I needed them to do. I also want to thank all of their coordinators because they all made classroom announcements for this. So hopefully some of you guys heard our classroom announcements. That was all us and our cords. I want to thank Anthony Cube, who helped market this event to the UCLA alumni. I want to thank Chris Constead, who developed the online voting platform and helped us count the votes. I really want to thank George Brown over there. George Brown is the director of the Alumni Scholars Club, and basically he has kept me sane throughout this entire process. Last but not least, I want to issue the most important thank you to a group of people who are not even in this room right now because they're fearlessly leading the check-in table. They are my coordinators. They are my committee. Without them, none of this would have happened. I rely on them in every possible way. And so if you see them when you're leaving this event, just give them a big hug for me. I know that's awkward. Don't do it. But just say thank you. And they're invaluable to this process. A little bit about the My Last Lecture Award. It started in 1955, and initially it was an award series. So basically, it was funded by, I think it was a campus religious group actually started it, and they decided that they wanted to have a speaker series on campus where they asked inspiring people to talk about their lives. They wanted them to answer the question, what would you say if this was your last lecture on Earth? And so some of those people were philosophy professor Abraham Kaplan, chemistry professor Kenneth Trueblood, and of course renowned coach John Wooden. Obviously a lot of really, really inspiring people have spoken at this event. Fortunately, it fell off the map a little bit. In 2010, a group of alumni scholars decided they wanted to bring it back, and they reinstituted the My Last Lecture Award. They made it a student-nominated faculty award, and it became the first of its kind on campus. So this is my 4th year attending this event, and it's my 2nd year helping out with the promotion and the planning. And I'm really, really excited, honestly, to see Professor Conley give this lecture. Like I said, I've gone the last 3 years, and this is the fullest the room has ever been. So I think it's important to highlight we had an outstanding voter turnout this year. We had almost 2,300 votes from every campus, or not every campus, every department on campus, all over the place, and Professor Conley won the majority of all those votes. I think it just really proves that he is one of the most, deserving award recipients that I have met. Since I've been announcing the winner, everyone has been coming out of the woodwork and being like, oh, I had Conley for math. He changed my life. He changed math for me. I don't understand. Math is a new thing. And I was like, who is this guy? So obviously, I think his students cannot speak more highly of him. I've gotten to meet with him and work with him, and I now realize he's fully deserving of all of that praise. So basically, to get this show on the road, we have someone who can way more properly introduce Professor Conley and start this wonderful event. And that is yet another legend, Randy Farber. Yeah. So Randy Farber, I've gotten to know him pretty well because he works really closely with the Alumni Scholars Club on a lot of different events. And I can say that he is one of the most eloquent, understanding, and intelligent and intuitive people that I know. Once he offered to be the speaker and the introducer tonight, I jumped at the chance. Basically, Randy Farber, class of '81, is president of Farber Consulting Group, Inc., a boutique healthcare management consulting firm focusing on all things healthcare related. Randy's a longtime Alumni Scholarship volunteer, having served in every capacity possible: mentor, district chair, area chair, state chair, and scholarship steering committee chair. Inspired by the Bucks for Bruins program, he and his wife, Patty, endowed the Farber Family Scholarship. After awarding 10 Farber Family Alumni Scholars, the endowment now supports graduate education in the lab of Dr. Amy Rowat. A seasoned speaker on the professional lecture circuit, Randy has addressed statewide and national audiences for groups such as the Association of Community Cancer Centers, the American Society for Gastroenterologic Endoscopy, and the California Ambulatory Surgery Association. Randy earned his Bachelor of Science from the UCLA School of Public Health and holds a Master's in Health Administration from Cal State Northridge. In addition to his consulting work, Randy is an instructor for UCLA Extension, teaching several courses on the healthcare industry, and is a member of the part-time faculty at CSUN, leading graduate courses in managed care, third-party payers, and leadership. In 2014, UCLA Extension recognized him as a distinguished instructor. All of this just goes to show exactly how passionate he is about education and public speaking, leadership, all of these great things. And so I can think of no better person to introduce our lecturer. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the one and only Randy Farber.
Well, thank you, Shabby, for that really lovely introduction. I wish my parents could have lived to hear it. My mother would have, my father would have enjoyed it. My mother would have believed it. So one more round of applause, and this one's for all of you. It is 8th week, 3 weeks to go till finals, and you guys are here to listen to a professor give a lecture on content for which you will not be tested. Nicely done. College is about learning more than what is in the classroom. So taking advantage of talks like these is really part of the college experience. So truly, I salute you for doing this. Yep. This is what happens when you get old. You forget you need glasses. All right. As the uh-oh, what did we do? Not my... Here, can you reset that? Not my tech. All right, I'm just going to move over here. All right. Is that ready to go? Okay, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. We can leave it. Okay. As the Republican nominee for president in House of Cards Season 4, Will Conway is a young, aggressive... Conway. Conley. Well, that's embarrassing. Okay, I'm winging this. William Joseph Conley is an assistant adjunct professor of mathematics and a UCLA alumnus. Go Bruins. Having earned his doctorate here in 2010. From an early age, Dr. Conley has been passionate about learning. In high school, he found beauty in, of all things, mathematics and elementary physics. Planning to earn a degree in engineering, he attended Virginia Polytechnic Institute, we all know it as Virginia Tech, but quickly realized he planned on getting a degree in engineering, but he realized he could not leave his beloved math behind. Ordinary students would just change their major. Professor Conley got degrees in both. And then stayed to earn a master's in mathematics. After earning his master's, he left the Hokies of Virginia Tech behind, journeyed to UCLA to study pure math, focusing on number theory. He completed his doctorate in 2010, becoming a true Bruin and discovering a whole new passion, teaching math to amazing UCLA students. Professor Conley spent the next 2 years in Norwich, England, conducting research in number theory at the University of East Anglia. He returned to UCLA in 2012, and we're so glad he did, teaching courses in linear algebra, multivariable calculus, cryptography, and differential equations. It's been about 30 years since I took my last final. Just reading that list has made me anxious. He helped develop and teach an exciting new course on dynamical systems for students in the life sciences. His enthusiasm for teaching and his commitment to his students twice earned him the UCLA Math Department's award for outstanding teaching, first as a TA in 2007 and then as a lecturer in 2014. And the Math Department isn't alone in recognizing his teaching skills. From a recent student posting on Bruin Walk this past January, and I quote, "He cares a lot about his students and wants to make sure that they understand the material he is teaching. His review sessions don't really have an end time. He always stays until all the questions are answered." Endless review sessions aren't new to Professor Conley. In 2013, someone posted about a 4-hour and 20-minute marathon review session, and then posted, and if I hadn't completely tweaked the tech, I'd have shown you this, a picture of Professor Conley's chalk white hands from 4 hours of writing on the board. But my absolute favorite of all the accolades on Reddit and Bruin Walk, and there are many, my favorite is that better than the long missives and better than the just how he changed their life and their thinking about math, was the very simple imperative: take him. All of these convey the same message. Professor Conley is something special. He's doing this in math. He is really something special. And lest you think that Will Conley is only about math and students, he's also an avid rock climber, an outdoor enthusiast. He has climbed, hiked, and cycled through some of the country's most majestic wilderness, and his time in the wild has led him to care very deeply about protecting the environment and achieving sustainability in all that we do. Gentle scholars, esteemed faculty and staff, friends and colleagues, family who have traveled from afar, please welcome the 2016 My Last Lecture awardee, UCLA's own Professor Will Conley.
Technical difficulties. Okay. Go ahead. Wait. There we go. Okay. Mike? Okay, good. There we go. So, thank you very much. Thank you to Randy for that wonderful introduction, and thank you tremendously to Shabby, wherever you Shabby, and to George, both of you. This is a huge honor, and thank you especially to all of you guys, everyone who voted for me and who is supporting me here. To all of you for coming out tonight. This is really tremendously, I'm absolutely humbled. So first thing I thought when I was told that I won this award was my last lecture. Guys, I'm in my 30s still. I hope this isn't my last lecture. And do you really think I have all this, life wisdom, So for those of you who are in my current classes in Math 32A and LS 30B, we do have class tomorrow. This is not my last lecture. This kind of made me think of, so I'm a big fan of this webcomic called XKCD. Some of you probably are familiar with it. And it kind of reminded me of this, And honestly, there's some truth to this. really, there's no point. There's no point in life where you just sort of hit adulthood. It's not when you turn. I mean, you're all 18 now, I'm pretty sure. It's not when you turn 18 and you suddenly have the right to vote and things like that. And it's not 21 either when you suddenly have full legal rights, including the ability to drink alcohol and things like that. And it's not 25 and it's not 30. I don't know. Maybe at some point when you have kids, that's certainly a big transition where maybe you become an adult. But basically, I think the point is, I'm not the only one who feels this way. So I have, in fact, since I found out about this award and as I've been planning it, I have reflected a lot on my life and on the last 20 years or so, and I have learned a tremendous amount from a lot of people. And so I want to thank a lot of people tonight. I'm going to be acknowledging all the people, and I think this is maybe sort of the first lesson to take from this talk is be sure to remember those people that helped you along the way. Be sure to acknowledge everyone in your life who made a difference, because you don't get anywhere just entirely on your own. So when I first started planning this, I'll get serious in a minute here, but at first I thought, oh wow, what should I talk about? I could talk about things that I'm passionate about, global warming and electric cars, things like that, or I could talk about some math. What's some fun stuff? You all came ready to hear about country reality, right? I know there are at least maybe 4 people in the room who know all these things. Or of course, climbing, my other, another passion of mine. And I'll talk actually a little bit about climbing later tonight, because I've certainly learned a lot of life lessons from climbing. I won't get into the math and physics of climbing. Or another math topic that I am fond of, cryptography. But so all these kind of ideas flying through my head, like what do I want to talk about, also reminded me of this comic. We don't need to be too literal about this. Okay. But in all seriousness now, my main sort of theme for tonight is find your passion. Find something that you love to do, and that you want to devote your life to doing and do it. And for me, I'm very, very fortunate that my passion is teaching math. Really, the thing that I love to do most is teach math, and specifically, I've never had more fun in my life than teaching math at UCLA. So I'll say more about this later on. But to tell you a little bit about sort of my backstory, Randy already mentioned some of this, but I started out actually, when I was in high school, my interests were sort of all over the place. I was really into math. I think I was probably most into math. But I also, had some interest in physics and a little bit in biology and foreign languages, and generally I liked a lot of things in school. I really enjoyed school, but I didn't really have any idea what I was going to do, when I grew up. So the sort of the standard advice, I think, when I was getting ready to graduate from high school, the standard advice was, well, you like math and physics a lot, study engineering. My dad was an engineer. Several of my friends, several of my friends' parents were engineers, and so I went to Virginia Tech to study engineering. And I quickly discovered when I got to Virginia Tech that I didn't really like the way engineers did math, or in most cases kind of tried to avoid doing math whenever possible. Those of you who are engineering majors may not agree with that really, but it's very different from the approach that pure math takes. And so I finished my math requirements at Virginia Tech pretty quickly, and I didn't want to stop just taking math just because I didn't have any more required math classes to take. So at first I just kind of was like, I'm just going to take some more math classes. I'll just take 1 or 2 math classes each semester in addition to my engineering classes, which was a little bit insane. But I really enjoyed them. They were sort of the classes that were really fun to me. And by, about my junior year, I realized, I might as well just double major in math and engineering because I'm going to have all the credits for that. And by the time I graduated, I had taken several graduate courses in math, and so I was like, well, I might as well stay here for a master's degree. I've already got but I had never taught math. And in fact, it's kind of funny. When I look back to high school and even early college, you may not. So those of you who've had me, who've been in my classes, would probably, I think, be a bit surprised to learn that I used to be a total introvert back in high school, and honestly in a lot of college as well. I think I've sort of, come out of my shell a bit more in my adult years, and especially through teaching. Yeah, so I remember when I was getting ready to graduate from high school, and I was thinking about applying for my first, summer job after high school, something like that. I was terrified of the thought of doing anything where I had to, interact with people, with customers, something like that. Getting a job at a McDonald's or bagging groceries or something like that. That just terrified me. I wanted something where I could be in, I don't know, maybe an office environment where I, of course, have to interact with people, but not like lots of strangers and everything like that. So if you had told me back then that years later I would be teaching math and I would be standing in front of audiences like this, standing in front of a lecture room full of 200 people 3 days a week, lecturing about math and everything like that, I would have not believed you at all. It's just not something that I could have imagined myself doing. But when I started working on my master's degree at Virginia Tech, I had to teach classes, and I remember my first few classes. I was nervous, I was terrified, but it went well, and I discovered that it was something that apparently I was pretty good at, and that I really enjoyed, and it got better and better as I taught more. Teaching math has introduced me to a lot of math that I didn't know particularly well, and got to learn it better. When you're teaching something, there's a saying that if you read something, you retain 10%. If you read it and you write it, you retain 50%. If you read it and you write it and you explain it to somebody else, you retain 90%. Something along those lines. I'm probably off on the percentages, but it's really true. When you teach something, you get to know it so intimately. You understand it so well. It's a great way to really make your knowledge of a subject concrete, and so that's another thing that I enjoyed early on about teaching math. So after finishing my master's degree, I came to UCLA to do my Ph.D. in math, and while I was here, I was a TA for many years, and I enjoyed that even more, and I started to realize, more and more that was sort of the part of math that I enjoyed most was teaching. And I worked on research, of course. After I finished my PhD, I got a postdoc position in Norwich, England, as Randy mentioned, and I went over there for about 2 years and did research in number theory. And honestly, I think that experience really solidified finally that what I enjoyed my time there. It was a great adventure living overseas and everything, but I think that really solidified for me that what I loved most was teaching math. That, and also before I actually went to England, when I got the job, I had about 6 months where I was waiting for my visa to go through. I don't know, you'd be amazed at how difficult it is to get a visa to go from the U.S. to England. I thought our countries were on pretty good terms, I thought the foreign relations were okay there, but it is very difficult. It took 6 months and $1,000 in visa application fees and all sorts of things like that. So during that 6 months while I was waiting here, I taught a couple of classes. I taught upper division abstract algebra class, Math 110A, over the summer, and I taught 115A, and in the fall I taught 115A again. That's linear algebra, and this was the awesomest experience ever. Now, not only was I actually teaching math instead of not just being a teaching assistant, a TA, but I was teaching upper division math classes. I got to teach sort of real math, and it was wonderful. Not the lower division classes, but more abstract stuff, things at a higher level, and that was just fantastic. Anyway, the point of all this is, the point of me telling this part of my life story is that you probably won't know what it is that you're so passionate about and that you love to do right away. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. Don't expect to have it figured out anytime soon. Maybe ever. When I showed this to Randy just a few minutes ago, he said, "Oh, that's good advice. I'm 57 and I still haven't, you know, I still feel that way." And so yeah, it's great to be interested in a lot of things when you're young, and especially when you're young, especially while you're here at UCLA. You know, take the time to explore all sorts of different things. You know, that's how you'll find this passion. That's how you'll find, you know, what it is that you love to do. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later as well. So one of the things I want to talk about tonight is some people that I think, you know, are good examples of this kind of ideal of, you know, there's something that they're really passionate about, and they, you know, they really live that dream. And these are also people that have inspired me and that I really, you know, look up to or have looked up to at some points. So, as Randy mentioned, I'm really into climbing. Some of you may know if you've been in my office, there's climbing posters all over the wall. I'm really into rock climbing. I got into rock climbing primarily when I was in grad school here, actually. I started climbing at the UCLA rock wall. Shout out any rock wall? Yeah, okay, awesome. I know there's a few climbers in the audience, all right. So I started climbing in about 2003, my first year of grad school, and I climbed a lot, especially in those first couple years of grad school. To my couple of grad school colleagues who are, you know, professors who are here, sorry, that's that may have been why I was a little unproductive in those years. More climbing and less than that. But one person who has been who I just tremendously look up to is Lynn Hill. Lynn Hill, if you haven't heard of her, if you're not a climber, you probably haven't heard of her. Lynn Hill was someone who was just absolutely dominated the rock climbing scene in the 1980s and the first half of the 1990s. In the early to mid 1980s, that was sort of the time at which competitive climbing first started to become a thing. Climbing competitions were organized around the world, and there was actually the first few like climbing World Cups and World Championships, and Lynn Hill absolutely dominated this competitive world of climbing. And that sort of, you know, indoor rock climbing on climbing walls. She also was an incredibly accomplished climber outdoors as well. One of the things she's probably best known for. Here's a few other pictures. By the way, I love this picture right here. This is first of all, she's pretty young there. I think still a teenager. And that is at Suicide Rock, which is right here in Southern California. And she has said that that's one of her favorite climbs. It's called Insomnia Crack. Haven't done it. You know, I hope to do it someday. I hope to live up to that someday. Anyway, one of the things that she's most known for is in 1993, and then again in 1994, she became the first person to free climb the nose of El Cap in Yosemite National Park. If you're not familiar with El Capitan, if you've never been to Yosemite, it is a 3,000-foot high granite monolith. I'll show you a picture of it in a few minutes. And when I say she free climbed it, that doesn't mean, you know, without ropes. To get a little bit into some technical details about climbing, it means climbing it without using artificial aid. Artificial aid is basically, to most climbers, it's basically cheating. You attach something to the rock, basically, temporarily, not a permanent attachment, but you attach something to the rock, and you attach essentially a cloth ladder to it, and you climb up on that ladder. And then you attach something else a few feet higher, and you attach another ladder, and you climb up a little higher. And you do this over and over. And yes, if that sounds like an incredibly slow process, it's about 10 times slower than you think. So most people who climb El Cap 3,000 feet via this very slow process take days. So she did this in 1993 without using artificial aid, which means just using her hands and feet, right? Just using her body to make upward progress. You see a rope here, and you see this piece of gear attached to the rock. That's just there to protect her in case she falls, right? And she became the first person in the world to do this. And she went back in 1994 and did it again, partly just to prove to the world that it was a fluke, partly so that a bunch of photographers could come and take pictures of it as well, and also to do it in under 24 hours. The first time she had, you know, taken a few days to do it. By the way, just to point out, I'm not saying she was the first woman to do this. She was the first person in the world to ever do this. This is kind of akin to, like, you know, breaking a world record or something like that. This is an incredibly hard climb that many, many people had attempted. Many of the best climbers in the world had attempted, and she became the first person to do it. So I think this is, you know, a good lesson to take away from this is nothing is impossible. Many things are very hard, but those are the things that, that are worth doing. Those are the things that that you will get the most out of doing. Challenging yourself. That's where real reward comes from. And well, yeah, there you go. So I mentioned the climb of El Cap. This is 2 pictures of her on one of the most famous features on that particular route, the Great Roof. That's this big roof or ceiling-like structure right here. There she is, like halfway up it, and there she is reaching the end of it. So 11 years after she became the first person to free climb this particular route, I had the privilege of climbing this myself. And of course, I did not repeat her feat by any means. I did a lot of that cheating that I was talking about. And when I mentioned how slow it goes, my climbing partner and I, we spent about 3.5 days doing it. So there's me in the same spot at the end of the Great Roof, and right up under the Great Roof. So when I was doing this, at the time that I was doing this, 11 years later, no one else in that 11 years had repeated this. So when I was up there, I was thinking, my God, I can't believe Lynn Hill free climbed this. This is just, especially that particular section of the route, it's one of the hardest things. There's a crack that's just this thin, and I could barely even fit my fingertips under it. And she somehow, used that to hold on. This is this is El Cap, and in case you haven't been to Yosemite, this red line is the route right here. So a little bit about this. So my climbing partner and I, my climbing partner is named Aaron, and he's one of my best friends in grad school, still one of my best friends in the whole world. We did many climbs together, and this was, no small feat for us, even though we cheated our way up to the top, basically, right? We spent 3.5 days doing this, and there's a tremendous amount of stuff that you have to figure out, and you have to learn, a tremendous amount of gear you have to buy, all sorts of things like this. You can see massive amounts of gear hanging off of me there. So we really worked our way up to this. When we first started climbing, I was a novice. Aaron had a lot more experience. He'd been climbing for nearly 10 years. And he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the ropes. And we decided to set a goal of doing this. Sorry, showed me the ropes, yes, literally. Unintentional. So anyway, we decided to set a goal of climbing El Cap and climbing the nose. It's something he wanted to do for all of his life. And it's something that I, aspired to as a new climber. That this is when I thought about climbing, and when climbing was something that I had wanted to do for a lot of my life, but I kind of didn't know it was a thing back then, as they say. I never met any climbers basically before I moved out to LA. Even though I was involved in all sorts of other outdoor activities and everything like that, climbing or hiking and backpacking and things like that. I'd never really met any rock climbers, and so I didn't really know there was a whole climbing community and everything like that. So anyway, when I thought about climbing, this is the kind of thing that I thought, this is the ultimate. I mean, climbing a 3,000-foot just sheer vertical face, spending 2 nights camping out on the wall, all this sort of thing. This is really it. And so we made it a goal to do this, and we worked our butts off for like 1.5 years. We trained a lot indoors. We trained a lot outdoors by doing other climbs that were similar to this, not as big, and kind of worked our way up. We did several of these. Here's a couple more pictures from that ascent. When I mentioned, massive amounts of gear you have to buy, you can kind of see all the gear hanging off of me in these pictures. That's where we spent our first night, sleeping on a natural rock ledge. You may think, wow, that sounds really scary, but man, it's the best sleep of your life because you just climbed all the way up to that. So anyway, the lesson to take here, the point of this is if you have a goal, make a plan, right? Figure out what steps you need to get there, and do it. I know this is pretty typical advice. This is pretty cliche, but this is how you can achieve big things. So every journey begins with with a first step. So climbing has been a big part of my life. This is another passion of mine in addition to teaching math. It's taken me to all sorts of wonderful places. This is one of those climbs, the top left one there is one of those climbs that we did to prepare for LCAP. That's in Zion. Beautiful place if you've never been to Zion in southern Utah. That's the Virgin River in the background. That was another one where we spent a night. You can see the little bed that we slept on just to my left, in fact. Another picture from Yosemite here. That's on the side of Half Dome. If you've ever been to Yosemite, it's one of the most iconic rocks anywhere. And these two lower pictures are in Red Rocks, which is outside of Las Vegas. Another really fun place to climb, and surprisingly beautiful, mountains and rock for being right outside of Las Vegas. You probably, if you've been to Vegas, you might not have even known that it was there, unless you're. I could name so many life lessons that I've gotten from climbing about trusting someone that you're with, about well, I already mentioned, working hard to achieve a goal, that sort of thing. Just all kinds of life lessons. But one thing I want to mention, one story that I'll tell. So here, I'm not climbing, but I'm rappelling down. This is how you get down from a really big climb like that in a lot of cases. And you'll notice the two ropes that I'm attached to are different colors. There's actually, when you want to do a really long rappel like that, you have to tie two ropes. You have two different ropes. And if you want to go down the entire length of a rope, you tie two of them together. And you thread them through an anchor, so there's basically like a ring that somebody else before you has attached to the rock, and you thread the rope through that. And if each rope is 200, if you have just one rope that's 200 feet long, just sorry to get a little technical here, but kind of a fun topic, I think. If you have one rope that's 200 feet long and you thread it through this thing and you need two strands to rappel down, you can only go 100 feet. That's as much math as we'll do tonight. 200 divided by 200. So if you want to do a full 200-foot long rappel, then you have to tie two of these 200-foot ropes together and then let the whole thing hang down. And so that's what we're doing here. And for a really big climb, this one, I think we had to do 3 or 4 of those rappels in a row. So 600, 800 feet, something like that. Well, one of the first trip that I ever took, climbing trip that I ever took to Red Rocks outside of Las Vegas, we did a climb called Crimson Chrysalis. And Crimson Chrysalis is an absolutely beautiful climb. It's 9 pitches long, so it's about a little less than 1,000 feet high, maybe. Really nice piece of rock. Not an incredibly hard climb, but a big, long climb, one that you can do in a day. And you have to rappel down the whole route. You get to this sort of tower at the top where, I don't think there's any way to just hike down from that. You have to. So rappelling is essentially, dangling a rope like this, and then you essentially slide down the rope. You put it through this device that's attached to you, and it slides down the rope. And it allows you to control your speed. So we get to the top of Crimson Chrysalis, and incidentally, I feel like this was my first trip to Red Rocks. Crimson Chrysalis was sort of the first really big, pretty long climb that I did, and I sort of felt like that was the moment, the day that I really truly fell in love with climbing. I mean, I really enjoyed it before that, but this is when I knew that this kind of climbing, these big long routes like this, were what I wanted to do. So we get to the top, and we're rappelling down, and you had to do, so it was 9 pitches to get up there. We managed to do to get down in 7 rappels. So that's 7 times that you have to, let these ropes hang down and slide down the ropes to another anchor lower down, then attach yourself to that anchor and re-thread the ropes through that, pull the ropes down, thread them through that, and then again slide down that rope and just repeat that over and over 7 times. This is what you have to do when you have something that's nearly 1,000 feet high. And we got a little bit of a late start coming down. There was a group ahead of us on the whole route that day, for the whole day, and so we're going a little bit slower than we otherwise would have. And so it started to get dark when we were rappelling down. It took probably a good 2 hours, maybe 3 hours to get down altogether. And so by the time we're, about halfway down, I don't remember exactly where it occurred, it was completely dark, and the end of one of the ropes got stuck underneath us. So Aaron had already rappelled down, And he was at the lower anchor, so he's probably 100 feet, 150 feet below me. And he starts, messing with the ropes because one of the ends is stuck, and he yells up to me that, hey, one of the rope ends is stuck. Let me see what I can do. And so he started pulling some. He said, I'm gonna pull the rope a little bit just to see if I can free it. And so he pulled the rope down. So again, imagine, there's a ring here, and these two ropes are tied together and running through that ring. And so he pulls this rope down. Well, the knot here, where the two ropes are tied together, then goes down like this, right? And what happened? The end of the rope that was down there that was stuck, he pulled about 5 or 6 feet down. It got stuck even more. Of course, whatever can go wrong will, right? So he's like, all right, it's stuck. I'm not going to be able to pull it back. So you're just going to have to repel it like that. And I look down, and there's the knot that's holding the two ropes together about 5 feet, 6 feet below me. And this little device here, imagine, if this is the rope, you put the rope through this device and you slide down it, right? Well, if there's a big knot in the rope, it's not going to go through that device. And so I knew what I would have to do. I had to rappel down. I set up my rappel. I rappelled down to where that knot was, just, 5 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, down. And then I would have to somehow get past the knot. And fortunately, I'd read all about this. That's kind of the point here. This is something that's totally not standard. Let's see, how many climbers are there out there? See a show of hands? How many of you guys who have your hand up have rappelled past the knot? Okay, I know this guy has. He runs the challenge course at UCLA, the ropes course. Of course, he knows how to pass a knot on rappel. This is really not a very standard thing to do in climbing. It's kind of one of those like advanced rope work techniques a little bit. And so I get down to this knot, and I fortunately had read all about this. I, as a fairly beginner climber, you might say, as I just pointed out, most of the people in this room who are climbers have never had to do this. This is something that you would think, I have no business studying how to do this. Well, in actuality, yeah, it's a good thing that I had, because otherwise I'd probably still be stuck up there, right? I probably would have been stuck up there overnight at the very least, because it was already completely dark. And of course, if I couldn't get down, then there was no way that Aaron could get down too. You have to sort of get down together. So it's a good thing that I had sort of studied this beforehand, and I was able to do it, executed it just fine. So a lesson out of this is be prepared. A simple lesson. I was a Boy Scout when I was in middle school and high school, and the Boy Scout motto is be prepared. And I don't mean this just as in always have a pocket knife in your pocket or something like that. I mean whatever it is that you are interested in, study it. Learn about it, right? Don't take anything like, at least anything serious, right? If you're just, gonna go out and have fun doing something sometime, then sure, you don't need to, study dance moves if you're gonna go out to the club. Sure. But any serious endeavor, and climbing is certainly a serious endeavor, you should study it, learn about it. I had really, even though I was a relative beginner, I had studied this a lot, and at least in theory knew exactly what to do, and I was able to put that theory into practice. Another important lesson from this is stay calm. Don't panic. Again, whatever can go wrong will, and when it does, don't freak out. Composure is very important in these situations. So anyway, back to people who have inspired me, people who have passions and live up to them. So, somebody who I find tremendously inspiring these days is Elon Musk. Probably a lot of you have heard of him, and so maybe this is a bit cliche nowadays, but if you haven't heard of Elon Musk, he is the CEO of Tesla Motors. These days they're making some of the most amazing cars ever built. He's also the CEO of SpaceX. They're a company that has successfully privatized what only NASA was doing for decades, building rockets and sending them into space. And not only that, they've built a rocket that can take off and land vertically. If you haven't seen the video of this, look it up on YouTube. It'll blow your mind. You think it's like computer animation or something. It's real. They've landed one on a barge out at sea, I think twice now. And he also is one of the significant people in a company called Solar City, which is now, I believe, the biggest solar panel producer and distributor in the United States. They do a lot of rooftop solar installations and things like that. So these are some of his companies. He made his first billions from a company you've probably heard of called PayPal. He started PayPal and ran it for several years successfully, made a lot of money, and when it was really lucrative, he sold it to eBay for something like $1.5 billion. And so that's how he made his first business. And then since then, he's been described as sort of a serial entrepreneur. He's also an incredibly intelligent person. He just comes up with all sorts of amazing, innovative ideas. And he puts them, into actual products and into actual companies here. And one other thing that he has done recently, at least, in terms of ideas, not anything that's been built yet, is he proposed something called a hyperloop, which is this totally crazy, far-fetched transportation system that, who knows, maybe in 20, 30, 50 years, maybe this is how we'll all be getting around. It involves these sort of vacuum tubes and, flying along them at incredibly high speeds. But what do all these things have in common? Tesla, Solar City, the Hyperloop. They're all about sustainable living. They're all about combating global warming. That's something that he believes very passionately in. A quote, "Climate change is the single greatest threat facing our planet. This is every kind of issue all at once. The financial cost of climate change makes it an economic issue. Its effect on clean air and water quality makes it a public health problem. Its role in exacerbating global conflict makes it a national security challenge, and its disproportionate impacts on vulnerable communities and on our children and grandchildren make acting on climate change a moral obligation. We've got to solve this problem before it's too late." And so he started Tesla, and he is one of the founders of Solar City and one of the big funding sources for Solar City, and he proposed the Hyperloop, all as ways of combating global warming, because this is something that he believes very passionately needs to be done. The world needs to do it. He's taking action to do it. And I respect that a lot. SpaceX, even a little more far-fetched. He founded SpaceX to improve space exploration technology so that we can someday colonize Mars, so that we can become a multi-planetary species. And really, he really believes that. So the lesson here, I would say, is dream big. I mentioned with Lynn Hill, nothing is impossible. Before she free-climbed El Cap, many people had tried that, and some people were beginning to think that this was just an impossible climb, an impossible feat to accomplish. Well, if you look at the history of the auto industry in the US, a lot of people have described what Elon Musk has done, starting a new car company, as impossible. A lot of people have described it before in that way. The last automobile company in the US to go public with a public offering of stock was in 1952. And that was Ford. They'd already been around for 50 years at that point. So really, all of the modern car companies were started 100 years ago. No startup has ever been successful in doing this, and Elon Musk has accomplished this. So again, nothing is impossible. Okay, maybe it helps to have billions of dollars, certainly. I think you could describe him as a billionaire, playboy, genius, philanthropist, entrepreneur. He's sometimes referred to as the real Tony Stark, if you've seen the Iron Man movies or the comic books. Those were words that Tony Stark once used to describe himself. So anyway, I think you could say that about Elon Musk. So moving on to other people who have inspired me, on a little bit more of a personal note, my parents. My parents are truly wonderful people. They're not billionaires. They are not world-class athletes or anything like that. But they have been very passionate about raising a family and teaching us well, instilling good values in us, and that's tremendous to me. My dad also has other passions. He's passionate. He's an artist in woodworking. Here's him sailing in a boat. And this is not just a picture of him sailing in a boat. This is him sailing in a wooden boat that he built from scratch. Here's a couple more boats that he built. A pair of kayaks that are absolutely gorgeous. And here's probably the most amazing Christmas gift not probably, I shouldn't say that, hands down without question, the most amazing Christmas gift I've ever gotten, a wooden clock that he built just from scratch, it's hanging in my apartment now. So I admire and respect my parents tremendously. They're actually beautiful. Not just they flew all the way out from North Carolina just to be here, so that's really awesome. So the lesson here is realize what it is that you need to be happy. You don't need billions of dollars. You don't need, well, you probably don't need, we don't all need billions of dollars. You don't need to be some world-class athlete or the best in the world at something or anything like that. If family is your priority, then, make that your passion. And that is absolutely, as respectable a passion as anything else. So, there we go. So, I want to do a few more acknowledgements now. As I said earlier, it's important to remember all the people who have helped you along the way and acknowledge them. So, I want to say first, how many of you guys are students from LS30? Okay. So I want to thank. So for those of you who are not familiar with LS30, LS30 is a math for life sciences class that's a new thing, and this has been a really amazing experience for me. So let me get back to a little bit of my life story that I was telling earlier. When I finished my postdoc in England, I came back to UCLA because this is something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to teach math, and so I accepted a lecturer position here at UCLA, and so in case you're not familiar with sort of the academic hierarchy and things like that, a lecturer position is pretty much the lowest position on the totem pole. It's a temporary position. I recognize that it was probably not something that I could do long term. Doesn't really have any job security. By the way, assistant adjunct professor, what I am now is just another maybe step or two higher on the totem pole. So I'm still anyway. So I first met Jane Shefsoff at the UCLA Rockwall actually, and there's a big lesson here, and that there's a number of lessons here, but one big lesson here is pay attention to the connections in your life. Treat everyone well, everyone that you meet. You never know where it's going to take you. Jane, who's also right down here, I first met Jane at the Rockwall, and I'd seen her climbing at the Rockwall a couple of times before, and it's it's a little it's something to witness, to see somebody get up from a powered wheelchair like that she's in and just get on a climbing wall and go up it. And I was really impressed by this. But the first time, so she used to climb with a guy who was a friend of mine at the Rockwall. He would belay her and everything. And one day he didn't show up, and she was there and she was hoping to climb. And she was like, "Hey, how about you climb with me?" And I was like, "Okay, I guess I could do that." And I was pretty nervous. I'd never done something like that before, but I gave it a chance, and so that's one little lesson. Treat everyone well, give everyone a chance. My friendship with Jane has brought me tremendous things over the years, and one of those things is she's the one who introduced me to LS30 before the class even existed. She, at about the same time that I came back from England, she had just finished her Ph.D. in ecology, mathematical ecology, and she was involved in planning this new, developing this new potential new course that was going to be a new math for life sciences course, and they had wild ideas of making it just something completely different from any kind of course that had ever been done before. And so she started talking to me about this. We would climb at the rock wall and we would talk it over. You guys who have taken LS30, you'd be amazed at how much of the planning and the development and discussion about your course has taken place at the UCLA rock wall. And so this is sort of how I got involved with it originally. She eventually introduced me to Alan Garfinkel, and Alan taught the first pilot run of LS30 about, I guess it was 3 years ago now, yeah. 3 years ago this spring quarter, in fact. And I sat in and observed, and I really liked what I saw. And I'd already heard a lot of the plans for what they were going to do from Jane, and we had talked about this. Some of my input went into some of the early drafts of the textbook and things like that. And Alan introduced me to Blair Van Valkenburg, and basically this is sort of how the ball got rolling. And so I really want to thank Jane for helping me to get into this, and Alan, I don't think he could be here tonight, unfortunately, and Blair, who I just mentioned, not on the list, but many, many others involved with this. Victoria Sork also, the Dean of the Life Sciences Division. My involvement with LS30 has been really just a wonderful thing. It's a fun class to teach. It's a very different class. Those of you who have taken my other math classes, it teaches dynamical systems and differential equations, and we're teaching this stuff. It's actually, in some sense, math that's at a pretty high level, and we're teaching this stuff to first-year students in biology. And the idea of doing that just seemed kind of bizarre at first, but when we sat down and kind of worked through how to do this, and Jane and Alan had a lot of the ideas about how to do this, it really works. And so I wanted to thank them. They've really, my involvement with that has been a huge part of what's helped me to get to where I am today. And in the math department and the physical sciences division, I really want to thank two people who fortunately are both here today. Don Blasius, my advisor from grad school, and also Bill Duke. And Bill, I'm going to show something here that you probably never saw before. I don't think you ever looked at my dissertation. Unfortunately, the bottom of it is on there. This is the beginning of the acknowledgements page from my Ph.D. dissertation, and it starts out, in my years at UCLA, I've had the pleasure and privilege to study mathematics with a number of great teachers and brilliant mathematicians. Among my early teachers, I would particularly like to mention Richard Ellman and Bill Duke, who not only taught me a lot, but also helped to shape my own style of teaching. And so here I am, receiving a teaching award, and really, I felt like, my own teaching was really positively influenced by Bill Duke's teaching. So I don't know, this is sort of coming full circle here. So Bill, a lot of this, I feel like I owe to you. And I also want to thank both of those two people, and one more, Joe Rudnick, the Dean of Physical Sciences. I'm going to do something a bit unconventional here. So I mentioned that my position right now is assistant adjunct professor, and that's pretty low on the totem pole, and is another kind of position that's not a permanent position, does not have a particular level of job security. So this year I actually applied for a new position in the math department, and I just found out just in the past week that I've gotten it. And this is a position that's pretty unconventional for UCLA. It's primarily a teaching position, and it has the potential to have actual job security. I could essentially get the equivalent of tenure, and so this may allow me to stay here indefinitely as long as I want to continue doing what I love to do, which is teaching math here. So to Don and to Bill and to Joe Rudnick, just a tremendous thanks. I can't possibly thank you enough for that. getting back to, I want to conclude now with another person or group of people who have inspired me. And that's you guys. Not just you all in this room, but what I mean here is the students and the larger community of the University of California, Los Angeles. Ever since I came to UCLA originally, I sort of fell in love with it when I first visited a little bit, and the longer that I've been here, the more I learn to love about it, and the more I find that it just amazes me. And recently, especially, I spent many years in grad school here, and I loved this place, and I loved a lot of the people that I met and the diversity of cultures and everything like this. But recently, as a teacher, I've actually gotten more involved and gotten more exposure to some of the other things that I was not aware of or not familiar with about this school. So I want to mention just point out some of the amazing stuff that goes on here. Of course, UCLA has amazing academics and high standards of excellence, and is one of the best ranked universities in the country, in the world even. We have brilliant researchers. We have this top-notch medical facility, right? Number 3 in the country. We all know that. We all know that. We have amazing athletics, right? We have more NCAA championships than any other school in the world. But again, these are the things you guys know. What I want to talk about is the students, is you guys. Some of the amazing things that you guys do. So, for example, dance marathon. Anybody out there involved in dance marathon? Yeah, all right. Okay. Dance marathon is this annual event that's a fundraiser for the Pediatric AIDS Coalition. And it's amazing. Over the last decade or so, they've raised literally millions of dollars for research and outreach and support for pediatric AIDS and HIV. And that's just, absolutely amazing. I unfortunately haven't made it to Dance Marathon the last 2 years. I keep meaning to. Next year, I'm hoping to, it's hoping to have time. Maybe I'll do a morale shift or something like that. But I did go about 2 years ago, I think. I went briefly and got to see what goes on there. And it's a lot of fun, and it's an amazing organization. LA Hacks is one of the biggest hackathons. Anybody involved in LA Hacks? Awesome, good. One of the biggest hackathons in the world. And it was put together by a group of UCLA students. It's amazing, and it brings in, it's now bringing in tons of entrepreneurs and people, willing to put money into all sorts of projects and everything like that. It's really amazing. Spring Sing is an amazing event. Spring Sing, it's the UCLA talent show. Yeah, pretty much, right? Except this is no ordinary, college talent show or something. I mean, it's a huge event. It takes place in Pauley Pavilion. It used to take place in a smaller venue, and it outgrew it, so it's now in Pauley Pavilion. And the people who perform there are UCLA students, and they're amazing. A lot of people who have performed there and who have won awards there have gone on to careers in the music industry and in Hollywood and all sorts of things like that. Last year, I went to Spring Sing for the first time, and Anthony Kiedis was receiving, of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, was receiving the George and Ira Gershwin Lifetime Achievement Award. And I was amazed. I thought he was just, going to get up on stage and accept the award and give a little speech or something like that. He did that, and then he stuck around and performed a little impromptu jam session. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing, with another member of the band. So Spring Sing is just this awesome thing, and this is put on, almost entirely by UCLA students. And then another one I should definitely mention. Any Woodsies out there? Any UCLA Unicamp? All right. For those of you who are not familiar with Unicamp, Unicamp is UCLA's official charity. It's been around since 1925. Is that right? 19? No. 34. Okay, 34. Okay. It's been around for over 80 years now. And Unicamp is a summer camp program for inner city kids. And it is absolutely amazing. It's, they take kids from inner city areas of Los Angeles up to a camp up near Big Bear for a week. And these are kids in middle school and high school. And it's just amazing to see the connections that they make. And it shows them, I mean, a lot of these are kids who have never, almost all of them, in fact, I think, are kids who have never camped before. They've never spent time in the outdoors. A lot of them have hardly ever been, outside the city to somewhere where you can look up and actually see amazing stars and everything like that. And so it's really impressive to see what this does in the lives of kids. I've gotten involved in Union Camp a little bit just in the last few years through a new program, and I want to acknowledge a couple of people who have helped me get involved with that as well. Waldo, Brian Pritchard up here, and Mikey Dang over there. Thank you guys for helping to enrich my life by introducing me to this. Mikey organized a new program at UniCamp called the CLIMB program, which is actually an acronym for Core Lessons in Mind and Body. Clever. And it's a program where they teach some of these kids a little bit about rock climbing, and at the end of the week, they take them out to actually climb on some real rock. And that's the part that I've helped out with, is to help sort of set that up, set up the climbing anchors for them, things like that. Pass on a little bit of, how my friend Aaron, when I was a kid, sorry, not when I was a kid, when I was in grad school, how my friend Aaron kind of took me under his wing and showed me a lot about climbing. I'm sort of helping to pass that on a little bit. And so to give you an example of the impact that I think this has, I was at a gala event, a sort of fundraising event for UniCamp just about a week and a half ago. And, there are a lot of older people in suits there, and a lot of wealthy people who are going to make donations and try to raise funds for this and everything. And a lot of people got up and gave talks, and some of them were very good talks. A lot of them were people who had been involved in UniCamp when they were students here, and had been camp counselors for the program and everything like that. But the talk that really moved me the most, the best speech that was given of the whole night, was this 16-year-old girl. And she spoke amazingly well, for one thing. She didn't just read from a script. She spoke with passion. When I'm talking about finding your passion and everything like that, she really loved the UniCamp program, and she acknowledged what it had done for her. I've never heard a 16-year-old kid, give a talk just that naturally, that eloquently ever before. Much less a 16-year-old girl from South LA, from some inner city area. So I was just absolutely amazed, and I really think that her involvement with UniCamp probably had something to do with giving her that confidence and everything like that. So my point is, these are some of the things that you guys at UCLA do, and I know some of you may not be involved with those specifically, but there's tons of others. There's clubs, there's intramurals, there's all sorts of cultural associations, there's dance groups, there's music groups, there's cultural dance groups, and cultural music groups, all sorts of things like this. And so, I guess my lesson here is get involved. I have only been able to be exposed or really get involved with some of these things lately, in the last few years. And I'm very, very privileged that I've had a lot of years at UCLA, so I've been able to, more recently get involved with some of these things. Here's a quote from one of my professors when I was an undergrad. He said, "The 4 worst words in the English language are, I wish I had." Jack Dudley of Virginia Tech. When he said that, when he told me that, I actually didn't really get it at first. I kind of thought he meant, you shouldn't really have regrets. But now, years later, looking back on that, I realized what he really meant was, you're not going to have regrets. You're not likely to have too many regrets about things that you did or things that you tried. What you may have regrets about later, the biggest regrets that I have almost no regrets about things that I've actually done. The biggest regrets that I've had are things that I didn't do, things that I wanted to do and didn't, opportunities that I missed. There are so many things that you can get involved with at UCLA, so many awesome experiences you can have here. And your time here is probably limited. You're probably going to be here for 4 years, unless you become a lifetime student like myself. I have the incredible privilege of having been here for many years, and thanks to this new position recently, I have the unbelievable, amazing privilege of, potentially being here for many, many more years. But, your time here is limited, so really get involved in some of these things. You might just find your passion in one of them. So, thank you.